Loser, the Obamacare website, which had technical issues all week because of too much web traffic. You can't campaign on the fact that millions don't have health care and then be surprised that millions don't have health care.
By any measure, it was a rough first week for enrollment under the Affordable Care Act. The Obama administration is trying to stress the positive, claiming at least 9 million visitors checked out the website before it went down for maintenance Friday night. But web traffic problems like this are undermining the entire process. The healthcare.gov site was simply supposedly overwhelmed. It's also possible that people who did manage to enroll signed up for programs they weren't actually eligible for. So just yesterday, the administration acknowledged that it needs to fix some design and software problems. They won't say how many people have actually enrolled so far. Let's bring in our Monday gaggle, National Journal's Ron Fournier, Politico's MJ Lee, and NBC's Casey Hunt. Ron, the candidate and campaign that brought us the most technologically advanced campaign in history in touching millions of people blew it this badly on this, their biggest, most important government outreach. I'm just sort of, it's unbelievable. Of all administrations to blow this, the one that's so technologically
Except that you've talked about this. This is an administration that mastered campaigning, but it kind of has a problem with getting its hands really dirty in the nitty-gritty of governing. And this is a case where they really had to get this right, not just for the health care reform, but for the whole idea that a lot of us believe in, that a strong, effective government can help people through this huge economic and social transition we're going through. This undermines that central argument that we're having in this country.
If you're not, MJ, if you're not reliable in the first week, it's going to make people just a little bit nervous about it.
Right, and I think the White House is actually a little bit lucky that all the shutdown drama has sort of, you know, the criticism that the White House would have gotten for how bad the rollout has been has actually been less than it would have been if there wasn't all this drama on the Hill and the president trying to negotiate with, or not negotiating with members of Congress. So, I mean, if they don't get this done in the next couple of weeks, I mean, the people who have to enroll by January 1st, their deadline is December 15th.
I mean, you know, they do have some breathing room here, but this first week, I mean, you know, in this little game that they claim web traffic, but they don't know how many people sign up. If they don't know how many people signed up, then what's wrong with them? How do they not know? Like, that actually is a sense of incompetence.
Well, you'd think that they would want to have that number so that they could shout it from the high heavens about how many people actually were dying to have health insurance and that this law helped. But, you know, they built into this law a considerable amount of political risk, in part because of the way they've allowed states to take over it in certain areas, and some states have elected to do that, and others are relying on the federal government. So some people are going to have either a good or a bad experience with the federal government's portal, and others are going to be dealing with their states. So you're not going to end up with sort of a unified experience nationwide for people in their own dealings with the health care law, and ultimately that's going to dictate whether this is a success or not for the Obama
administration. Although there has been a unified experience here, and that is nobody seems to be able to get on the site.
Well, and,
well, on the federal site, but the states are all having different experiences.
They are, and there's no doubt that that Republican politics got in the way of cooperation, right? There's no doubt there are a whole bunch of states that don't want this to work, almost rooting for failure, and that is a terrible place to be as well. Who wants to be on the side of rooting for failure?
Right. And I would say not almost rooting for failure. There are many Republicans who are rooting for failure, and I frankly find that obscene and unpatriotic. The law has been passed. We should all be doing what we can to make it work. If we're opposed to it, let's get more. If you're a Republican, let's get more Republicans in Congress and overturn it. As you said, they've really hurt their own case by deciding to make this shutdown and the debt limit over a bill that the president's not going to overturn, and it has overshadowed in the public's mind the failures of enacting the bill.
Well, it has, and MJ, I guess the other part of this that I still can't get my arms around is they knew for months that October 1st was going to be, everybody was going to be watching. Everybody was going to be just wondering how, and so to not be prepared for it makes you think, calls into question, is HHS not the entity that should be running this? Is somebody's head going to roll here? If you're Dennis McDonough in the White House, aren't you screaming at somebody upset about what's wrong?
And some of the glitches that we've heard about, you click on the tab for picking a security question, and there are actually no options that actually come down, and that sort of thing is what's stopping people from being able to enroll. It's a little bit, I mean, I guess it's a little bit embarrassing, and hopefully the glitches are small enough that they're fixable in the the next couple of weeks, but I don't know.
Casey, Jim Messina and David Plouffe wouldn't have accepted this on the campaign. That's the irony here. People would have been fired.
Absolutely not. The standards would have been much higher. And to MJ's point, I mean, these are not, you know,
this is
basics of building a website. It's not calculating who's eligible for Medicaid. Much more complicated questions.
All right, I'm going to pause here, sneak in a break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about a subject I think Ron's going to enjoy, which is how 10 years ago the California recall actually gave us a hint at the politics that we now have as everyday life today. Kicking off, though, our annual